What's going on, Washington fans? Welcome to the JTFB channel. And the Washington Commanders are headed to the NFC Championship, which still does not even feel real to say to y'all right now. Every time I see a graphic or just see it on TV, I still don't believe it. It's not going to hit me until like the next few days, like Friday or Saturday before the game. I'm like, okay, it's time to lock in. We have an NFC Championship to win. We're one game away from the Super Bowl. That is just unreal. If you'd have told me that back in training camp in like July when I'm out there sweating, I don't know if I would have believed you. I've been like, look, anything's possible with the rookie quarterback, and Jane Daniels is getting us there. But they are going into the NFC Championship game missing one key player, and that is right guard Sam Cosmi, who unfortunately got rolled up on in that divisional game against the Lions, and it sounded like it wasn't going to be good, and then they came out and said that he tore his ACL. Now, we're not 100% sure of the severity of the ACL tear and how bad it is, but just to give y'all an idea, I just want to talk about the injury real quick for the rest of the playoffs, and obviously what this means for next year, possibly. I'm going to go into more details, and I have a video already queued up for y'all with some possibilities for the off season when the season actually ends, but we're not there yet. Like I said, we have a Super Bowl to go win, but I still want to talk about it because it's going to be a big focal point for this game in the NFC Championship. Obviously, Jalen Carter's one of the best interior defensive linemen in the NFL already, and he makes his presence known. I mean, he has throughout the season, honestly, but if you watch that Rams game in the snow, just really down and dirty physical game, he was a difference maker on that defense. And that's the one thing that I'm keeping an eye on. I think that's the one matchup that could really make or break this game. Obviously, you have Saquon on the other side of the ball. I think the defense stopping the run is the biggest thing for, factors of winning this game. But the other one I'm looking at is Carter and what he can do to really wreak havoc in the interior. And he did it the first game. Second game, not as much. He had a couple moments there, but then we also saw Jay Daniels have his moments, making him miss when he kept the ball and he was running out in open space. Carter couldn't bring him down. So we saw both sides. We saw Jay Daniels get some wins, and we saw Carter get some wins in that first game. But I just think it comes down to it's not even just like pressures or anything like that. It's just disrupting the play and getting the play off script, just getting the train off the tracks. That's what Carter is so good at in that interior D-line. And I mean, Jay Daniels has been phenomenal against the blitz. He's been really good against pressure. He has the highest completion percentage in the postseason against the blitz, against the pressure. I mean, he's dropping dimes back there. So it's not like he can't handle it, but also just stopping the run game and not having that run game exist. We haven't had it in a while now. And I think, Austin Eckler was a big piece of that first game. He was the leading receiver on the team, actually, and he didn't play in that second game. So getting him back, in my opinion, can really break things open. But you just talk about what the possibility could be right there at right guards. Let's talk about just this matchup and then possibly the Super Bowl, what that looks like. So obviously missing Cosmi's big. He had the second most snaps in the NFL at guard or on the offensive line of 1,157 offensive snaps played. Like I said, second. He had 700 pass block snaps played, which is seventh in the league. 457 run block snaps, which is 11th in the league. The only thing that really has killed him this season was penalties. He has 10 penalties, which is a lot. Definitely got to bring that down, but only allowed 1 sack, 5 hits, 23 pressures, which can kind of go both ways. It can kind of be on Jaden Daniels sometimes, especially like earlier on in the season it was. But he's gotten a lot better. Cosmi's locked it down the second half of the season for sure, but only 1 sack and 5 hits allowed. I'm taking that. Like we knew coming into the season, as many moving pieces there are and all these new faces and stuff like that, Sam Cosmi was one of those guys that, in my opinion, and he got paid accordingly. Like I'm so glad we got that done. But the thing is, like we knew he would be one of the foundation pieces moving forward of, recalibrating this team. We're not going to call it a rebuild because we're in the NFC Championship. But we knew Sam Cosmi was going to be like one of the few good picks that the old regime had moving forward. He's going to be one of those foundation guys, especially on the offensive line, which has such a critical role in the success of this team so far this season with Jay Daniels and everything he's done. The offensive line hasn't been perfect, but it's definitely been good enough to make things happen. I definitely want to see the run game get a little bit better. But still, missing Sam Cosmi from that right guard spot can create a lot of problems Now, the Detroit Lions don't have the best defensive line. They usually do, but they've got so many injuries. They were just, Zadarius Smith, a bunch of like old vets on the line. It wasn't really anyone worth writing home about. Not having, McNeil, not having Hutch, just missing a lot of big time pieces on that defensive line. This Eagles defensive line is a different problem. And we can talk about Chiefs, Bills later, their defensive line, same thing. But the Eagles' defensive line, in my opinion, it's got to be one of, if not the best defensive line in the NFL. Just how they rotate guys in, and it's so deep too. Like you just look at all the people that they have. Why do they keep drafting these guys? They hit on every single one of them. They're all really good. They've got to get rid of somebody eventually. Obviously Graham's out, but like guys like Sweat, like Nolan and Carter have just been big time pieces. Then they drafted Hunt, who I really like coming out too. They rotate so many different guys on their line. It's fresh legs all the time. Now, the thing is, we run a lot of up tempo, so they won't be able to do that as much. And we're not going to be substituting as much stuff like that either. So it does help out. But even just Carter, he is an absolute game wrecker. As much as I hate saying anything positive about the Eagles, if you watch Carter, it just pops out on film. I think he's a top 3 interior defensive lineman in the NFL already, which is crazy. Crazy stuff. He just makes his presence known. And especially in that Rams game, like I mentioned, there's times where he just blew the play up. I mean, he pretty much put the nail in the coffin, taking down Stafford in that final, minute or whatever it was of the game. Now, we have, in my opinion, 2 different options that Washington can do for this NFC Championship and moving forward until, the Super Bowl. And we saw it against Detroit. It was bringing in Trent Scott, who's a third string offensive lineman, mostly tackle. He's come in. We've seen him. He had caught the first touchdown, Jaden Daniels. But he's usually at tackle. Moving him, and we had him at right guard. I was actually kind of surprised. I was like, maybe they'll do like Dieter. I don't know. I really don't know what to expect. And I'll tell you my next one. But I was actually really impressed. Did not allow a single pressure the rest of the game. When he came in, just on no notice that he would be coming in at right guard and just filled in really well. And on tape, it showed didn't miss a beat when he came in at right guard. So I love what I saw. But once again, the talent that you're facing with the Lions interior D-line, even the edge rushers, not having Aiden Hutchinson, and now going to a healthy top tier, like I said, A+ defensive line of the Eagles. It's a much different look. He's going to be going against a lot harder matchups against the Eagles than he was with the Lions. So I think that's option A. Washington could just put Trent Scott back at right guard like they did for the Lions and just see how it goes. Or, throughout this whole week, we'll, start to figure out more throughout the week at practice. And I'm sure the local media and stuff will talk about it a little bit more. But something I'm kind of interested in, and this is maybe something that they do next season while Cosmi's out. Who knows what they're going to do in the offseason. But Wiley, who has actually played guard, he played guard with the Chiefs, had success playing guard. Maybe you move him into right guard, and then you put Cornelius Lucas at right tackle. So Brandon Coleman, Nick Allegretti, Tyler Biadasz, and then have Wiley at right guard, and then have Cornelius Lucas at right tackle. Lucas has been good. If you remember, beginning of the season, we were rotating Lucas and Brandon Coleman in at left tackle. I was like, what is this? But it was working. And then Brandon Coleman really just, once he was fully ready, locked down that left tackle spot. So I feel really good about, if you have to move Wiley inside, so be it. I mean, we even talked about it before the season. Like, hey, he didn't have a good season at right tackle. Maybe move him into that right guard spot full time, or, left guard spot until we got Allegretti, just because he can play it. He has that versatility to be able to go back inside when needed. And then we know Lucas, and in limited situations that we've seen, he had to start a couple times last year at tackle full time. But we've seen him have to come in, like I said, even this season earlier. Maybe he's that guy at right tackle, and maybe Wiley goes to right guard while Cosmi is out. So that's right now. That's the next game. That is against the Eagles. And then not if, but when we win, and then we have to go to the Super Bowl, are you doing the same thing? Do you feel good with Trent Scott at right guard? And maybe they do. Like I said, I didn't know what to expect when Cosmi went out. When I saw that Trent Scott came in, I was like, what the heck? That's not what I would have guessed. I think maybe, like I said, Dieter, because I know he played center mostly, but going from center to guard might be a little bit easier. I've just never seen Trent Scott play guard, so I didn't know what to expect. But he did great. So that's option A. Option B is Wiley at right guard and Lucas at right tackle. That might be what they decide to do. That's something they have to kind of experiment with this week. I'm sure they've already talked about it. And then obviously meeting with the players and seeing what they're comfortable doing and where they're aligning at. If I had to guess, I would honestly be surprised if they keep Trent Scott at right guard for next week. Like I said, just with the matchups that he's going to have to go against with the Eagles, I think the safest bet is putting Wiley at right guard and putting Lucas at right tackle. I just would hate to have that drop off. It takes one play for Jalen Carter to get into the backfield, cause a turnover, blow up a play on third down or something like that. That can just completely change the game. So I'm going to be keeping an eye on that. I can't wait to see what the local media says of practice and everything. But it does not look good for Sam Cosmi. So that's what we're talking about for this Sunday coming up with the NFC Championship. Now, what about long term? Like I said, this is an ACL injury. This could take anywhere from 8 to 12 months. For an offensive lineman, you're looking maybe in like that 10, 11, 12 range, which is not good at all. Not good. Obviously, like I said, we have to wait to hear what kind of, ACL tear it is, how bad it is. And I know there's such an advancement on, the medicals and the surgeries and stuff you can do for an ACL. I'm not really worried about his long-term, like how he looks after it. I'm way more concerned with how long it takes for him to get back to that game health, get back to be able to use that knee and his stance and his anchor and his drop step, everything he does to the high level that he plays with. I'm not worried. I mean, you can talk about so many different guys and superstars in the NFL who have had ACL injuries. You completely forgot they even had them, and they come back and they look fine. So I'm not really too worried about how he looks afterwards. I'm just more worried about how long it takes him to get back in there. Do you draft somebody to fill in that right guard spot? Because we need depth anyways. So maybe you do draft a guy. This isn't a really good interior. This isn't a good line class at all, but especially in the interior line, this is not a good draft class in a lot of people's opinions, but just mine personally looking at it, I'm not too crazy about a lot of these guys. So maybe you go out there and you sign a free agent, because think about it this way. February, March, April, May, June, July, August. We're 7 months away from, really next season. You could obviously training camps like July, but you start preseason at like the end of August. And then the regular season kicks off like first, second week of September. So that's 8 months. It would really surprise me. I mean, I would be blown away if he's ready by week 1. I would be blown away. And I mean, it happened with John Allen. We thought he was going to be out for the rest of the season with his pectoral muscle that he tore. And he came back week 17, I think it was. And he had a big game against Detroit. So who knows? But 8 months for me just isn't a lot of time for a guy like Sam Cosmi recovering from an ACL tear. Like I said, is it a reconstruction? Is it just a tear? Like, what does it look like? He should be getting a full-on MRI, like if he hasn't already had it, he should have. But just getting a better idea of what that looks like. So that's something to keep an eye on too, something I'm going to, have to note. But I would be shocked if he's ready by the beginning of the season. If I had to guess, without knowing the extent, I would say week 4, week 5. Maybe beyond. Like, that's being optimistic. Week 6, week 7. If it's 12 months, that's the whole season. That's not good. So don't worry. I already have notes now. I've already done my scouting. I've already taken a look at guys I liked in free agency, like a stopgap. And like I said, I've been going through the draft because that's just what I do. But when the season ends, I'll drop a full video with these guys and talk about the free agents, talk about maybe some draft prospects, and just my full-on plan of how do you replace Sam Cosmi while he's out. But it's a major, major loss. I don't think we've been able to really magnify it and talk about it a lot, because it kind of it got brushed in there with all the excitement of winning and going to the NFC Championship. And right now we're on this high of one win away from the Super Bowl. But after the season, I think people are going to once again realize, like, dang, we really might not have Sam Cosmi next season. It might be the entire season. Like, he wouldn't be ready for, except for like the playoffs. And at that point, you just throw him in the playoffs if who you have is working. And that's a long time down the road. But as soon as the season ends, like I said, I'll have a video already planned out for y'all. I'll drop that with my plan and what I would do to really help fill in that gap. Because Cosmi, I mentioned the numbers and everything with sacks, pressures. Like I said, penalties were high this year compared to what I expected out of him. But only 1 sack, only 5 hits allowed. You need that guy to be an anchor, and the locker room loves Cosmi. I mean, we got to see more of Cosmi this year, of him celebrating after plays and his personality coming out. Just an awesome guy. The team absolutely loves Sam Cosmi. So it's a big loss, but he said, I'm going to be there for this entire run. Like, nothing's going to stop me from being there for this run. And I fully believe him. I think he would even wait to have surgery until after the playoffs and everything. Like, if he had to, like, that's Cosmi. Like, he's going to be there and he's going to support this team. But big time loss of a big time player. And it could be what really decides the NFC Championship if we don't stop Carter in that interior D line, whether it's Scott or whether they go with Wiley. That's to be figured out, and we'll keep an eye on it. But I appreciate y'all checking out the video. Hit that subscribe and like button. And it's like I said, as soon as the season ends, I have all kinds of videos lined up for y'all. So make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out on it, including the Sam Cosmi replacement video that I already have planned out for y'all. Big loss. Hope he recovers soon. If we can get him back by week 3, week 4, I think that's best case scenario for next year, though. But I appreciate it. Let's go win the Super Bowl. Peace.